Hi, this is a recording for the Newcastle Gateshead Managing Emotions group. It's DBT Informed Skills Group and my name's Deborah. This session that we're doing is session number 6 out of 12 sessions, and it's the second session of emotional regulation is the topic. It's the second session of that, okay? And today what we're going to cover is the interpretation of emotions and valuing the positives, okay? The video is meant to run alongside having been given materials from the course, so worksheets and things like that I'll go through over the video, and also it's meant to be supported by having phone contact with one of the group facilitators so you can talk through your experience. The way that you would use the video is just watch as much as you want over, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and take breaks when you want. You might want to take breaks because we talk about exercises, so just pause the video, take a break, do the exercise, and then turn it back on. Okay? Right, so what we're going to do is begin as we would do the group sessions in class, which is go through the homework for last week. So last week was the first week doing emotional regulation, and we talked about describing emotions. The homework was to fill in the observe and describe worksheet, okay? And I'll go through, so that's something hopefully that you'll be able to talk about in the phone consultations. I'll go through an example of an emotion that I've experienced, just so you get another idea of what it's like to fill in the observe and describe worksheet. Okay, so if you get the worksheet in front of you, and it says select a current or recent emotional reaction and fill out as much of the sheet as you possibly can. Okay, so if I think about a situation, so I'll do the prompting event first. So that's the first orange box on the sheet, or the first box on the sheet. So it says prompting event for my emotion. What, who, what, when, where was what started the emotion. So what happened to start the emotion is that I broke my mobile phone, and then I tried to mend it and I just couldn't mend it. And part of the problem was that I had my password for my email on my mobile phone, and then I broke my mobile phone, so I couldn't get onto my email at all on another account because I'd forgotten the password. Okay, so learn from me, people, learn from me, don't do that. And it meant that I was locked out of all sorts. I couldn't get into my financial things, I couldn't get into anything. I thought I was going to lose kind of data, access to everything, all sorts. So the name of the emotion, now I haven't got the emotional wheel that we used last week, but the emotion that I would say was sort of agitation. It's somewhere between anxiety and angry, or there was a lot. I was just so frustrated that I'd lost the passcode and everything, but at the same time I was really anxious about what the consequences were going to be. So the intensity of the emotion, for me, it was quite an intense experience. I just didn't know what I was going to do. I felt like there were loads of things that I'd lost and I wouldn't be able to get back. So I would say on a scale of 1 to 100, which is what I was suggesting, I would say that the intensity of the emotion was 70. Okay, so the prompting event we've talked about already. So interpretations, so if you remember, what we'd say is interpretations is what's going on inside your head. Okay, and it says here beliefs, assumptions, appraisals. So what was going on inside your head? And it would be, I'm never going to get my data back, I'm going to lose all my photographs, I'm going to lose financial information, it's all your fault. Okay, they would be the types of things that were going on inside my head. Okay, so body changes and sensations or sensing. Okay, so the things that I felt were, I'd felt real kind of tension across the front of my chest there. Not like a band, but just like a sort of, just like a real rising sort of stiffness. And I also felt tension kind of through my arms and my legs. Okay, and I just couldn't think straight. So at one point I went on my work laptop to try and resolve the situation, because I kept trying to resolve it, and then I couldn't remember my passcode for my work laptop either, which I'd known, you know, just an hour before. But I was so agitated about this situation that I couldn't even remember that, couldn't think straight. Okay. Body language, what's my facial expression, posture or gestures? So if you remember, that would be, how would I look if you saw me from across the room, okay? And how I would look, I would have looked glum, a sort of sad face, but sort of jumpy movements, not like a still sad face, more of a sort of, and maybe an element of panic as well, element of panic in my face, okay? What did I want to do? Action urges, okay? What did I feel like doing? Well, that was quite easy. I felt like throwing my my phone out of the window, possibly my laptop and the phone out of the window, and I probably would have screamed at the phone company because I felt it was their fault that I was in this situation in the first place, okay? So what I actually did or said, right, well, I tried to find the passcode and I spent time trying to find it, but sometimes I was so agitated and upset by it, I had to move away and take a little break and get back to it because I was so agitated. What was the after effect does the emotion have on me? I felt absolutely exhausted. I sorted it out in the end. I found the passcode. I can't remember how I found it, but I did. I found it and I was able to get back onto all my other accounts. But at the end, I just felt absolutely exhausted. Still quite kind of lively, still got a bit wired, a bit of energy going through me, but sort of exhausted with it at the same time. Okay, so that's the sheet, that's the observe and describe emotion sheet that we would be expecting you to do with your for your homework, and that we hope to go through on the phone. Okay, so the next bit I'm going to look at is the work for this week, and you should have the workbook with you. So it's workbook for the week 6, second week of emotional regulation. The other thing that's going to help you with the emotional regulation module is the clip of the film Inside Out, is it called, I think? Inside Out, I think so, yes, I think it's called Inside Out. So there's a cartoon clip that's come with the email as well, and it's maybe a film, so it's a fun film, like it's a cartoon film that's made for kind of family fun. But it might be something that you might fancy watching, because it just does really highlight how much your emotions can impact on your thinking and the way that you behave. So in that respect, it's quite clever. Okay, but it is a family film. It's not intended for adults, and it's not got any sort of deep and meaningful message with it. Okay, so in the workbook that you should have with you, one of the first slides on page 2, it looks as the goals of the emotional regulation module, the 3 sessions that we do. And today we're going to be looking at the last 3 parts of the goals: to decrease the number of unwanted emotions, to increase emotional resilience, and to decrease suffering. Okay, and then there are a couple of slides there that go over what you talked about last week. What are emotions? Describing emotions. Okay, and it looks at a model there to describe emotions that is very similar to the one that we've just been through when I was talking there about losing my passcodes. So the next bit is our exercise. Okay, so the exercise, it looks there at what is a prompting event or a trigger, and it describes prompting events or triggers coming from outside your environment. So that's similar to what I just described there. My prompting event was my phone breaking and then losing my passcode. So that was something that came from outside my environment. Might be something that somebody did, like cutting in on me or giving me a gift, you know, but it would be something that was from outside of you, a change in the weather, okay? But a trigger or a prompting event that comes, they sometimes can come from inside your environment. And these can be your own thoughts, your own behaviour or physical reactions. So that might be feeling tired, it might be a memory coming in about something pleasant that's happened to you in the past or something unpleasant that's happened to you in the past. Okay, so that's an internal event, something, a trigger that comes through you from inside yourself. Okay. The exercise that we're going to do is called Taking Different Perspectives. In the workbook, it's based on you being in the group. But if you look on your email, there should be a link to the Taking Different Perspectives worksheet, and it's so that you can do it on your own. Okay. So the exercise will be exactly the same. So what we do is look at different scenarios. I think there's about 9 of them. And the first scenario is a friend walks past me in the street and ignores me. Okay, so that's something that happens. And what we would like you to do in this exercise is come up with an interpretation. So if you remember from the sheets previously, your interpretation is what goes on inside your head. What thoughts do you have? Okay, and try and make sure that that's different to how you feel or how you behave. We're talking just at the moment about what thoughts you have. Okay, so the trigger prompting event is a friend walks past you in the street and ignores you. Your interpretation, so they've written down on the sheet already, the first interpretation is, why are they ignoring me? Have I done something wrong? Okay, and then the next thing says, the next column goes, how would you feel in this scenario if you were thinking interpretation 1? Okay, so somebody walks past me, I'm thinking, why are they ignoring me? Have I done something wrong? So the emotion, how I would feel, would be sad, maybe anxious, perhaps a bit sort of agitated, maybe a bit, what on earth are they doing that for? You know, why are they doing that? Why are they ignoring me? Okay, so that's the first time we do it. So I'd like to approach it again afresh, anew. Okay, so it's exactly the same event. A friend walks past you in the street and ignores you. Okay, but I would like you to come up for interpretation 2 with a completely different interpretation of the situation. Okay, now to do this is quite difficult. It's difficult to come up with something completely different, a different understanding in your mind as to how you would, what you would think about that. And something that might help you is if you think about somebody else. So if you think about somebody that you know, maybe a family member or a friend, and who's very different to you, how would they react if that happened? Okay. So on this worksheet, the friend walks past you and ignores you. Interpretation 2, they've said, they must be in a hurry. They mustn't have seen me. Okay. And how I feel, so if I feel the event is somebody walks past me in the street and ignores me. My interpretation, what goes on inside my head is, oh, they mustn't have noticed me. They mustn't have realised it was me. How do I feel? So I feel neutral. It says there, you know, just like, maybe a little bit concerned about them, maybe a bit worried. Oh, I hope they're all right. They seem like they were in a real hurry, but, quite relaxed, quite neutral. Okay, that's it. That's the exercise. So what I would like you to do is go through all of the other scenarios, coming up with one interpretation and the emotion, and then a second interpretation and the emotion. The interpretations just need to be different in their content. You need to be viewing the trigger, the prompting event differently. Okay, they don't need to be positive and negative. They just need to be different. Okay, so spend a little time. You might want to pause the video and spend a bit of time doing them. Okay, I hope you got on all right doing that exercise, and that's something that we can talk a bit more about in the on the phone support. In your workbook, which is now on page 5, it said it talks there about what impacted the way people interpret events have, and that's something again that you might want to talk about over the phone. Often what we see is that when we interpret the situation differently, we feel differently. Our emotions are very different. And that really just goes to demonstrate the power of what goes on in our mind. So those interpretations that go on in our mind can really have a big impact on how we feel. And the example there of scenario 1 can demonstrate that, but hopefully you've seen that going through the exercise. The other thing that a lot of people learn from that exercise is actually it's quite hard to come up with a different interpretation. It's quite hard to come up with how you might think if you were in somebody else's shoes, what might go on in somebody else's mind. Okay. So that's exercise number 1. So exercise number 2 looks at increasing the positives, building up the positives. What do you do to, what do you find pleasant? Spend time writing a list of things you enjoy. Use the handout at the back and add to this list. So let's see if I can find the handout. There you go. So it says adult pleasurable event schedule. So it's just a list of things that you might enjoy. And just to write down things that you could, or tick things that you do that you might enjoy doing. These might be things that you've done in the past, or there might be things that you know about that other people do that they enjoy, or there might be things that you just like to give a try to. Okay, so I would like you to come up with a list of pleasant events, things that you might enjoy. And then the next stage of this is to try and do one thing and enter it into your the pleasant event diary sheet that's also should be attached to your email. So I'd like you to do one pleasant event per day. Okay, now we have a lot of discussion about this, about whether they're planned events or unplanned events. Okay, so what you might do is leave maybe a couple of days, and instead of planning an event, you just see what happens over that day and maybe notice something that you've enjoyed. So it might be having a cup of tea in peace and quiet. You know, it might be having a conversation with a friend or a family member. It might be, you know, having a shower, and that first experience of getting in and feeling very warm. Okay, it doesn't have to be great shakes. It doesn't have to be, you know, having a spa day or anything like that. We're just talking about those small pleasures in life. And if you write them down, the hope or the intention is that you will notice them and be able to have more of an awareness of them. Okay, so that's what we would like you to do. If you turn over your workbook, so we're now on page 6, it talks there about looking at your goals and fitting them with your positive things, thinking about the positive long-term goals in your life. And this might be something that you're aware of already, things that you would like, you know, maybe a different home, or maybe, you know, something else in your recovery, like getting a job or going on a college course. Okay, so one of the things that we know is if your long-term goals are related to things that are important in your life, what your values are, then they're much more likely to be achievable. So we've also attached to the email an exercise that helps you to identify your values, and that might be something that you would like to have a look at. Okay, the exercise itself takes between sort of 10 minutes, maybe half an hour, okay, and you just go through a list of words and say, right, that's important to me, that's not important to me, okay, and that might help you to think about, where do I want to go in my life? What do I want to do? You know, maybe it's my family is important to me, or maybe animals are important to me, okay, maybe winning is important to me. It's working that out. So increasing positive emotion, so it's important to have positive events in your life. And on page 6 it says, building a life worth living is like saving up pennies in a piggy bank, storing up positive experiences and having things you value to work towards. And there's an exercise, the next exercise on page 7 talks about if there are beliefs or thoughts that get in the way of positive emotions. And there's a table, so there's a Word document attached to the email that you can use for this exercise. And what I'd like you to do is have a think and write down, so pause the video and write down some of the thoughts that can get in the way of pleasurable activities, or just anything really that can get in the way of you doing those positive things. So if you built up a list of things that you enjoy, you know, having a cup of tea in the quiet, taking the dog for a walk, you know, whatever thing, having a nice sit down in my comfy chair, whatever it is, what gets in the way of you doing things like that? Okay, so already as an example on the table they've said something that gets in the way, the thought that anything good in my life won't last. So sometimes that can be something that gets in the way. Okay, so write as many things down. You maybe want to pause the video now, write as many things down that might get in the way of you engaging in positive experiences. And once you've done that, written down things that get in the way, we'll now go over to the other side of the table and look at ways to overcome these things that get in the way. Okay, so again, there are examples put in already. So ways to get over it is mindfulness skills, which we're going to practice in a minute, or remembering pleasant activities are part of my recovery and have been recommended by the NHS. So this is a course that's been put together by the NHS, it's evidence-based, it's research, we know it works, and we're saying actually doing these pleasant events, giving yourself these things, help in your recovery when you've been struggling with your mental health. So that reminding yourself of that might help you in terms of help you against these barriers, things that get in the way of your pleasant events. Okay, so I would like you to spend a bit of time thinking of other barriers, of other ways to overcome the barriers. Okay, so you might want to pause the video again. And when you've completed that exercise, looking at things that get in the way and looking at ways to overcome it, we will move on to the next one. So this exercise is about using mindfulness skills. And it talks there, we talked there about mindfulness skills as a way of overcoming barriers to enjoying positive or pleasant experiences, okay? So we're going to do a quick mindfulness exercise now. It's just going to last a couple of minutes and it's about mindfulness of sound. And to help us, I'm going to open my window. So if we can hear any extra sounds as a consequence. So that might be something that you might want to do. Okay, so I would just like you to sit down with your feet flat on the floor and follow the instructions that I'm going to go through on the video. Okay, I'm going to start the exercise with the bell, and then at the end I'm going to finish it with the bell as well. So make yourself comfortable as you can on your chair or wherever you're sitting, with your feet flat on the floor, if that works for you. So either close your eyes or make your gaze downwards. Begin by taking in a deep breath and then slowly letting go of that breath. Now, bring the focus of your attention to your hearing, to the sounds in this environment that you're in this moment. Open your awareness to the sounds, focus your attention on them, whatever those sounds might be. Might be sounds in front of you, to the sides of you, behind you. Above or below. Notice any urge to label sounds as they come, to try and say what they are. Instead of trying to label them, just notice them, just be aware of them. You might have an urge to judge if you like them or not. Just be aware of that. Let it go, and then just focus your attention on allowing the sounds to arrive, just listening. If your mind wanders, notice where it's gone and return the focus of your awareness to the sounds. Try not to seek them out, just let them come to you. Maybe noticing any gaps between sounds, any periods where they're louder, or maybe times when they're quieter. Now, we're bringing this exercise to a close. When you feel ready, open your eyes and begin to look around the room. Now, as we finish that exercise, you might want to write down a few notes in your workbook about what you thought about it, whether it was impossible, whether it was ridiculous, or any things that you particularly noticed about the sounds or about how you felt. Maybe you felt that it was silly, maybe you felt that it was great to be able to hear things that you'd never heard before. Okay? On the worksheet and the workbook, it talks about external events. So they might be those things, you know, the sounds that you heard around you, perhaps a bird or some traffic, or, you know, a person nearby. And it talks about noticing internal events. So maybe you felt your tummy rumbling, or had a sense of feeling really restless and thinking, I just want to get up out of this chair and stop following this instruction, this staff guidance. Okay? So try and note those things down, and they're things that we can talk about in the phone consultation. So in your workbook it talks about how mindfulness skills can increase your awareness of positive experiences and help you to focus on positives when they do happen, and also to refocus. So when your mind wanders, when you start thinking, oh, this isn't going to last forever, or think about what you need to do for tea tonight, or that argument that you'd had earlier on in the day, if you've got that mindful awareness, if your mind wanders, you can just bring it back. And if you remember the mindfulness video that we watched, the good thing about it is if you fail, failing is succeeding with mindfulness. So you can just fail, start again, fail, start again. Okay. It also talks about having a gratitude diary is something that people can use in terms of positive experiences. So that's noticing things that you are grateful for over the day. And people might want to write that down, maybe in a journal or a notebook. This is something that I do, something that I practice. I don't do it every day, but I probably do it about 3 or 4 days a week. And so I write down, I just start with a sentence, today I am grateful for, and I write down about 3 things. Generally they're not big things, like they can be, I'm grateful for the moon, I'm grateful for getting a parking space near my office, I'm grateful for that really nice tea I had the other night. Okay, it doesn't have to be great shakes, okay, it can be, and it is about noticing those small things in life. When I do it, when I fill mine in, I always think, what kind of makes me go like, you know, just something that's just a bit like, that's, you know, makes me feel kind of relaxed and happy. Okay, and they're the things that I include in my gratitude diary. Again, the more that we write these things down, the more that we increase our awareness that they've happened. Okay. So, oh, and also on page 10 it talks about that being unmindful of worries, and that's what I'd spoken about earlier. So if there are negative thoughts that come into your mind that get in the way of a positive experience, then mindfulness can say, oh, I'm having that thought again. But just like with that exercise, I'm going to focus my attention on whatever I'm doing, playing with the dog, having a bath, making tea, whatever it is. Okay. It talks here about letting those negative thoughts pass by like clouds in the sky. So you've got a few bits of homework to do after this session. So read through the whole of the workbook, complete a diary of pleasant events, and notice things that you are grateful for. You also need to complete the observe and describe emotion sheet at least once, if not more than once. What I would recommend is that you take a picture of it on your phone and do it as many times as possible. The more you do it, the easier it'll become to do. I've done an example at the beginning there of doing really quite an extreme emotion. Sometimes that's helpful so you can identify your emotions easily, but just try to do it with as many emotional experiences as possible, because then it'll be easier to complete and you understand your emotions more and more. Okay. The other thing that you could do over the next few days after watching this video is to oh, I've forgotten the other thing. Oh, do the values exercise. Okay. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to do session 7 shortly, which is the last session of the emotional regulation topic. See you soon. Bye.